really worried about the dog getting hurt. I'm trying to grab the leash to wrestle the dog, and I thought I was going to die. I wasn't worried about the dog.
From Indianapolis, Indiana, this is Truth Egg.
Got it.
What do we think about sugar, alcohol? Good, bad, indifferent?
No, it's
I think it's
terrible.
poison.
It's
Yeah.
poison.
I think so too. Yeah.
I think that
It's
I
not
just
healthy,
read
right?
that the FDA is rolling back any recommendations of alcohol.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did they actually have some of those recommendations on the books that they're just like, we just left them there from the 1940s?
Well, it's something like a guideline of, 2 or fewer a day is in the healthy range. I can't remember. That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess it has something to do with either inference or statements they've made in the past.
Yeah. I was watching a little interview with Brad Pitt because that movie's coming out this weekend, the F1 movie. And he's with Dax Shepard. Dax is doing his podcast and Pitt's on there.
Another man who married up.
Yes, big time.
He sure did, but also down because Kristen Bell is very short.
She is very short.
She
is.
And I'm
And
sure they're
compared to
delighted
him,
by it.
Yes. He talked about how 1994 changed his life.
Okay.
The year itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said it was
Me too.
one of the worst years in his life, and he had to get straightened out. And that's when he went to AA. And so Dax.
So he stopped drinking. He's sober.
Yeah, he's a sober. So he and Dax were talking about being in AA. And Brad's like, you have no idea how bad it was for me. Like, I was a mess. I woke up one day and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I've got to get straightened
Well,
out.
you're doing whatever you want. And that's
Yeah,
probably a
yeah.
hard place for a person to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He said
not,
he just...
not boo-hoo or anything,
Right,
but like, what do
right.
you do with that? Like
Yeah.
Justin Bieber. What's
Oh,
that
yeah.
got to be like?
Well, let's ask P.
At least
Diddy.
the earlier years.
Let's ask P. Diddy.
How dare you?
P. Diddy could tell us.
Yeah.
Diddy didn't do it.
Diddy did it! He did it!
Hey, his poly market odds just went under 50%. That's a big deal.
Oh, it is.
They were up in the 80s.
Yeah,
at
they
some
were.
point.
They were. Pitt was talking about how once he figured out that he could remove alcohol from his life, how much clearer everything began to look to him.
Oh,
not
for
just
sure.
just not like here and now, but like everything. And he said there was a script that changed it. It was all back in '94. Do you guys remember when he did that movie with Morgan Freeman?
7. Yeah.
7.
Oh,
That's
so good.
he didn't-
Fantastic movie.
He did
Yeah.
not talk about it specifically, but he talked about the script. He said it's so cliche, old cop, young cop, trying to prove himself, trying to withstand, and you just walked away going, he's talking about 7. He's
Yeah,
got
why would he not mention the name of it?
Well, they cut
was
it
it a
off.
movie he did?
Yes, it was.
Oh,
He
and then
read
they
the
cut it
script,
off, yeah.
and
Yeah.
his agent said he read the first 7 pages, and he said, I called her. I'm like, why? And she said, just finish it.
Just
And he
keep
said-
going.
And he said,
Yeah.
I finished it. And then it was just this little synopsis on Instagram, and then the interview just cut
Oh, I'm
out.
sure the
So it
Sixth
had to be
Sense
7.
was boring halfway through.
Oh, right.
Okay, so
Right.
there's ghosts.
Yeah,
Go
right.
on.
Yeah, that's great. Whatever, right. So anyway, I got a kick out of that. But it made me think a lot about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Health.
Okay, what is
Healthy-
that? What are we
healthy-
going to talk about today?
Healthy lifestyles, right?
So how would you define a healthy lifestyle?
Oh.
And a healthy mind, body, spirit. What
All
are
of
we-
the above. Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah,
okay.
all the above. Healthy lifestyle.
So we're going to crack the code today?
I'm going to assume diet, exercise, and friends.
Diet,
be nice.
exercise,
Yeah.
friends. All the above. I feel like every time I've got a handle on what's healthy, something else comes out to say it's not healthy, right? Like,
Yeah.
go ahead. You get, go.
No,
No, go ahead. You're about to say
you
something.
never have to yield to me.
He was
I just-
about to
but
explain
since
the
you did-
industry behind it.
I know, but since I did, here we go. Go.
Well, the only thing I would say is that when something is identified in the media as healthy or not healthy, there's a narrow set of criteria to essentially classify things.
Yeah.
So if you think of, I think everybody would agree that alcohol is poison, that it's not good for your body.
Yeah, it does nothing good for you
But also
naturally.
relaxation is good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you introduce some alcohol to relax, and that's
Right.
a way that you relax, that could be good. If you have a social, hang out with people and you drink a little bit and you don't go overboard,
Right.
it might be better to have that social interaction with drinking than to have no drinking and no social life.
Yeah,
So-
I identify with that as if I'm going to be social and participate and
Yeah.
put myself out.
Yeah.
That's
So-
usually a go-to.
Same.
But then you're looking at more than one criteria to
Yeah.
be able to identify what is and isn't healthy.
Well, now it's a trade-off.
Yeah,
But I think in
and
its basic form, we can all agree alcohol. and I
Alcohol is
consume it.
poison.
Yeah,
That's
it's
all.
just-
it's
right,
not good
right.
for you.
We agree.
Tastes
Right.
great though,
It does.
or
Or
bad.
can, right.
Yeah.
But there was a fat-free craze. There was eggs are bad for you craze. There was a craze where coffee is not good for you. Eggs are now good for you. Coffee
I think the
okay
coffee
for you.
one changes every
It
20,
seems
30
Same
minutes.
with the
Right?
eggs, yeah.
Red meat.
I haven't heard about eggs in a couple years.
Yeah, me
but you
either.
know what the one thing is that they all have in common? They were always fake.
Yeah.
We just believed them because the
Yeah.
media told
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
MSG, remember that?
Oh my God, do I.
First of all, the flavor enhancer, it's
Yeah.
one of my favorite seasonings.
No MSG in my Chinese food, please.
Yeah, yeah, that whole thing came of something some guy made up
Yeah.
on the news
Yeah.
one day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had another 50-year-old man tell me, well, at least it doesn't have MSG. And I'm like,
How about the latest where bread, European
razors
bread,
and apples too.
Oh,
It's our,
that was a Halloween
that, by the
warning.
way, has never happened.
really?
Oh,
Has
yeah?
never happened.
Seriously?
Yeah, people have planted razor blades,
But no
like
one's
as a-
actually
But
bitten
that
into-
had never happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
The biggest when I started traveling internationally years ago, there was this big conversation about our pasta and bread in this country versus
Yes,
Europe.
our wheat is poison.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just crazy, right? And then you look at our food pyramid and how it's carbohydrate centric, and we work. Yeah, so that's what I mean. You really have to be your own person to figure this out, right?
Well, and with that food pyramid, South Park did a bit about it. Where
oh God, I remember
just turn
this.
it upside
yeah,
down.
turn it upside
and
down.
That's
That's
what
perfect.
That's what actually is
Yeah.
healthy.
Yes, yeah.
And they weren't entirely wrong about it. But to your point, part of that is because of the food that we have.
Yes,
and the
yeah.
access to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I agree with you. It's the flour and probably the sugar too, but the flour specifically has such an impact on my physiology.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's so hard to keep it out altogether.
It's almost impossible.
But if you introduce it and you're
Right.
dependent on glucose and now you need carbs and your
Yeah.
energy is going
Yeah,
up and down.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's a never-ending cycle. I read this article years ago, and it talked about how stevia was found back in the early 1900s and how our federal government didn't want that stuff in here because guess why? The sugar.
'cause
guys.
sugar.
Yeah, the sugar.
Well,
guys.
it's why
Yeah.
Big Chocolate made up those stories about
Yes,
razors and
yes,
apples
yes,
so that
yes.
local
Yeah.
farmers couldn't
Yeah.
give away their fruit on a holiday.
Sometimes I really think our federal
That
government
was good,
does
though.
us
That was a good
disservice.
conspiracy.
That was
You
it.
made
Was
that up?
it was. It
No,
was.
I saw both of you going, wow.
You notice I just let
that
that go.
sounds like something that the early Hershey
I just
family might
let
have.
that go. Oh, it's
Those guys were
fascinating, though.
corrupt.
The Hershey guys?
Yeah, they were
They
terrible.
all, yeah, they all were though, right?
Robber barons, every one of them.
Yeah, it's sometimes I think our federal government does us a disservice with
Oh,
our
okay.
food. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You can
The
you can
FDA.
put that period of feed
I know.
back up.
But that's what I mean, though. You really have to be your own advocate for your healthy lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
And I think the two of you do that. Do you not?
Oh yeah.
Whether
Sure.
it's
Absolutely.
go ahead. I want to hear this.
Hear what?
Sure.
Michael.
Sure. What do you do?
Girls, you're both pretty.
What do you what do you do for your healthy lifestyle? Come on, let's hear it.
I don't know.
Do you have a routine? Do
Well, he
you-
did push-ups today.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
I did push-ups
you did 10
today.
push-ups today.
So I did. Did you say 10 push-ups?
Yeah. How many did you do?
It was more than that.
How many? Tell me.
47.
Straight.
For his age.
47
Straight.
in 3 sets.
Oh, there you go. Got it.
So that's why I'm so swole.
So
anyway.
20, 20, and 7.
No, it was
Go.
20,
I understand.
20, 15, and
Got
12.
It. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Those are good. Those are
So
really good.
anyway,
All right.
so I'm
what
so
do you-
healthy.
Yeah. So what do you do? Because your wife is very healthy.
So she is a trained
She
nutritionist.
has to be.
Yeah.
So and then she got this training because she had her own conditions that she wanted to figure out what's the best way to navigate these autoimmune conditions that I live with.
Right.
And so she learned some stuff on her own, and then she said, this has been great for me to discover this. I'd like to help other people. So she gets some formal training and some certifications, and that took her a few years, and then she started working with other people. It was going to be a full-time job for a while. She decided it wasn't the right path for her permanently. But what we do is we just eat food. So, for example, if some company put a label on it,
If it's in a box or a bag.
it's most likely not made as well as the
Agreed.
earth could have made it.
Right.
So we just try to eat whole foods.
Yeah.
So, and then we try to eat, I personally try to eat protein and fat first.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in the order that it's on my plate, but as my priority is I need to get some protein and fat. And I think that maybe that's valid for men, but I don't know. And then
swole men.
vegetables. And then vegetables. So lots of vegetables. Fruit I have occasionally.
Maybe some arugula salad with a fork and knife.
You better
Yeah.
believe it. You better
Fork
believe
and
it.
knife.
You got to fight with that shit, though. You got to fight with it.
With God's chopsticks.
The whole idea is I want to eat arugula because it's healthy, but I'm using these forks to look sophisticated, and I can't get that shit off the plate.
Oh, and this lettuce is fighting you the whole time.
It's like I can't even flip the thing over.
Just take your hand.
So eventually, I was literally sitting with my wife, just saying, I can just pick this up with my hands. I've got
Yes.
two
I
forks
need
right
3
here.
hands
Yes.
to eat this.
So anyway,
be like the Indians in India and just take some naan and just scoop it off.
yeah, exactly
anyway.
right.
Yep.
So the reason why I think that's good as an armchair expert, which I'm a certified armchair
Yes,
expert,
you are.
is that
Dax Shepard School of Overconfidence.
No, that's right. So if I eat
Heavyweight contender.
if I eat protein first, and by protein I don't mean beans, I don't mean
You're talking
vegetable.
meat,
I'm talking
fish.
about meat, fish. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I eat that
Something's got to
as,
die.
as the leading feature of my
Yeah.
diet, then I am going to have energy for longer because it burns slower,
Yeah.
especially when it's fatty.
Yeah.
When you have fat, it's really good for your brain.
It's more
It burns slow.
satiating so you don't overeat the carbs, which trick your brain into wanting
Because I
more.
actually tried to be a vegetarian for a while, a non-committed vegetarian.
No,
And
wasting
I literally
disease for me.
I ate bread like crazy
I did
because I was like, I got to fill myself up.
I did it. Yep.
So meat and fat.
And all the meat
first.
substitutes are heavy carbed.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Vegetables used to be what we ate if nobody caught anything.
Yeah. and
Right.
and then with vegetables, like you can't overeat vegetables because before you eat something that's too much for your body to handle, you're already so full or
Yeah.
tired of sitting
Right.
down and eating.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's hard to overeat when you start with that. Now, once you start to have like barbecue chicken, then you're introducing a lot of other sugars and stuff like that. And so it is, my wife wears a continuous glucose monitor. And so I don't, but she does because she's pre-diabetic. I know you wear one, Michael, because you're pre or post or during. You're right in the midst of diabetes.
Yeah, type 2.
So
Thanks for calling me out on that. By the
Yeah,
way.
you got it.
Would you like to talk about some of your diseases that you might want to share with the general public?
I just about have none.
So good for you.
Yeah, it feels great.
It was
So-
weirdly defensive.
Wasn't it though? Man.
So,
Go on.
we're gonna cut it out. don't
Yeah, right. Aaron cuts nothing.
So-
yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
So what was I saying though?
Glucose
Oh yeah.
monitor.
So because of that, she has been able to, and she's kind of, knows what to look for because of her training. She's kind of obsessing over the, one little thing. Like if you eat a piece of toast with butter versus a piece of toast with avocado on it.
Yeah.
Like the difference in response from your
Oh yeah.
monitor.
Yeah, it's huge.
And what she basically treats it like a video game. She's trying to like
same.
keep herself in a
In a
range
zone,
and that
right?
sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you're going to have spikes and valleys. That's the way it
yeah,
works.
yeah.
But
No way around it.
There's going
but-
to be a cupcake.
But because
Oh,
of
yeah.
her training, by being around her, I've picked up things that are sort of like the science explanation behind
They're
why.
basically a doctor.
Yeah, I'm essentially.
Armchair doctor.
Yeah.
So that's the food side. What do you do for the stress side? What do you do for the angry, frustrated, I'm pissed off at the world piece to stay healthy? What do you do for that?
Yeah, just not giving a shit has been working
Yeah.
really good. So,
Is it?
yeah. So back in, I'm being serious about this,
Yeah.
as I always am.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but go on.
Back in 2020, I decided, or was it 2019? I can't remember exactly when it was. I decided, I would set goals every year. And I decided that year, 2019 or 2020, I did not want to have any goals.
Whoa. Really?
So, yeah, no goals. So I'll set goals every year. It's the things I want to accomplish that year. Sometimes it's
How did it feel?
It felt great because you know what? I achieved 100% of what I set out to achieve.
Which was nothing.
Yeah, nothing. I literally achieved nothing. And it was perfect.
Man, okay, all right.
You don't like that. You're
I don't-
uncomfortable with that.
Here's
Maybe.
the important question.
Go ahead.
Did it work?
Yes.
Did it work in that
For two-
your overall outcome served you?
In two ways. In way number one is I had nothing to be dissatisfied by, so I had no stress in where I was throughout the year.
Self-criticism. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Way number two is I accomplished all the exact same things that I did in prior years. If you look at years, every year is a little different for different reasons.
Right.
But basically my accomplishments were about the same as always. Because I didn't stop showing up to work, although in 2020 I did a lot of not working.
Right.
But yeah, I just
Do you still do this?
I haven't had a goal since.
No.
So in the last 6 months, I've started to have by accident a couple of goals.
By accident?
Yeah, unplanned
Unplanned
I just
goals.
found myself saying
Wait, did
them.
they just show up? Were you
Yeah,
sitting
they
on the
do.
couch and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, there's a goal?
It's the first time somebody mentions you've said that before, where you're like, okay, I guess it's working.
Honey, is that your goal?
I want
then?
to. Yeah, is that? I want to know how this happened. How did you go from no goals to now I've got two? How did
Well,
that happen?
because I had this new phase of my career.
Yeah.
Where I went from being an operator,
Yeah.
partner in an agency to a solo operation.
Yeah.
And I just woke up one day and said, you know what I want to achieve?
There it
Or maybe
is.
I was sitting
There
on the
it
couch.
is.
You're right. I might have been on
Maybe.
the couch.
Carrie, I was thinking about. I don't know.
So, but
I'm asking.
but they're not important goals.
they're not.
No goals are important.
What are the goals that are not important that you decided to have goals
just
for?
like numerical, numbers
Yeah.
that I want to hit financially.
Okay.
Benchmarks,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
I'm a believer in goals, but I'm not a believer in stressing out over goals. I think goals are something that you work towards, but you don't stress about, right? But I feel like for my personality, I have to be working towards something, or I feel like I'm just wasting on the sideline.
Let me try that.
and I don't like
from
that.
not from our sponsor, but
Yeah,
it's
from the
just-
non-sponsored.
I'm gonna try this
Yeah,
out.
whatever, Michael. What were you
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, exactly. So, Aaron, I'm curious how you deal with this because you've gone through some stressful pieces in the last.
That's HIPAA guidelines say that you can't share that.
Really, but we can share type 2 diabetes.
Oh, what do you,
Oh, okay.
I didn't
all
say
right.
the name of your disease.
what are you
Yeah.
going to dead name me next?
Yeah, right. So walk me through because you've had, I mean, truly, you've had some crazy stuff happen, and
Well,
you've
my
dealt with it really
entire
well. I think.
life. Yeah, it's just the unfortunate part is it's always new,
Yeah.
crazy stuff that I'm
It
just,
just kinda
trying to keep up.
supersedes. Yeah.
I obviously enjoy it. They talk about. You've probably heard the entrepreneurial seizure.
Yeah.
I can't remember who that.
I don't know
I
this
know.
one. Tell
Yeah.
me what this is, Aaron.
Well, it's the idea where somebody's ambitious and has some enthusiasm and a skill set, and they're like, "Hey, instead of doing this, I think I'm going to start my own business."
Yeah.
It's a specific book, and I cannot remember the name of it because it's ridiculously long. Anyways, the entrepreneurial seizure is where you decide, I'm going to start my own business, and then you just do, and then you eat shit because there's so much more involved you never knew about.
Yep.
Well, I've had entrepreneurial epilepsy my whole life.
Epilepsy.
And it was probably my third therapist. This was during a period where I had to see different therapists every 6 months, part of the training stuff. I was like, I think I'm crazy. And they're like, no. I've worked with people like you before.
Oh.
Just entrepreneurs.
Yeah, right, that's what I mean.
People who for some reason are drawn towards making something out of nothing. Rather than working with what's already there.
Yeah.
And it was very helpful because then she was also able to sort of describe, like, I'm guessing these are the problems that you have.
Yeah.
Because
And she knew your exact issues because
No. The problems in relationship, like communication styles and not being able to communicate a vision to somebody in a way that they can understand what I'm seeing enough to decide whether or not to trust me.
Right.
I get very dismissive. Anyways, what was my point about all that?
you were just blowing them off.
You were being dismissive.
Entrepreneurial seizure.
Yeah.
So life has been exciting, and I'm grateful for that because in case this is all there is, I'm at least having fun most of the time.
Pretty good, right?
You seem like you're having fun.
I've gotten pretty good at not being okay.
Yeah.
Again, I want
Are
to.
any
I want
of
to
us
think.
really okay?
Well, but are you okay with not being okay?
Yes.
That's
I
the
am.
hard part.
Yeah.
Like, are you okay with being good enough?
Yeah.
Are you okay with being misunderstood? Are you okay with failing at something for a while
Yeah.
before you decide whether or not you're going to try to do it?
Of all, if my circle of friends, you may be the only one that has figured something out that I don't know if we've articulated in this podcast or away from this podcast, which
I am
is
so excited we're talking about me.
which is, I'm where I am and I'm okay where I am. And you were okay where you were even when it was icky. You were still okay with it. You didn't freak out. You didn't say I'm going to go kill myself or you.
Oh,
really,
Jesus.
How long
I
did you
have?
not hang out with
Like,
them?
I'm surprised you show your face in public anymore.
But you know what I mean? I
Well,
mean,
I'll
you
tell
found
you-
peace in it. Maybe peace is the wrong word.
Well, I had to
use.
come to terms
There you
with it.
go. There you go.
I will say that all along the way, there have been great people who have been close to me and have helped me through stages that, especially people who are familiar with the icky spaces, to go, brother, this is nothing. We're going to do this, this, and this, and then it either goes this way or that way, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's just going to suck because you're going to feel bad the whole time.
Yeah. But you found a way to deal with it. I mean, really, truly, just kind of go with it.
You know what? And I really wanted it to be faith. Oh, I tried so hard.
Yeah, that's
and it
hard.
wasn't the time.
Yeah, right.
I
That's- yeah.
accept-
Maybe next time. Maybe next failure.
Well, there
it.
will be.
There's-
I mean,
hey, this too shall pass, right?
listen, have I mentioned I do jujitsu?
Are you from Oregon?
No, I was recently thinking about kind of laughing at how difficult it's been for me to understand some things yet.
Most things, I'd say.
Well, in the context of the sport. Whereas there's other things that I'll do effortlessly just because, I don't know, it just seems that way.
Right.
And this notion of paraperception, which is you're familiar with it, sort of your interpretation of stimuli.
Yeah.
I realize part of what draws me to that kind of kinesthetic skill is that it's my worst form of learning.
Oh,
Like the amount of time it takes to process what's happening to my body into what my body should do about it is very strange. I live in my head. So to interact through my body is very, sometimes almost surreal.
so therapeutic, or no?
Healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's, I mean, it's certainly not a thing you want to be uncomfortable with.
Right.
And like you were talking about earlier with the stress and the stress that comes from the conflict or the combat of jiu-jitsu or whatever, getting used to that. So when you feel it in life, you're like, well, you just literally just breathe.
Right.
If you're breathing, you're not done.
So it's developing some physiological skills that you can use in just
That was a
emotional
big
daily
part.
life.
Yeah. Trying different meditations, learning to be okay because And it's funny when I'm not the one in something, it's very easy to go, hey, it's going to be okay. And they're like, well, you don't know that. I do.
Yeah,
Because it's always been okay.
it is.
Every time you have thought it wasn't going to be okay, it was okay.
And if it's not, we'll just redefine okay.
And if it's not,
Well, and that's what's in my head,
And
which
if-
is just give me some time. I'll come
Yeah.
up with a new program.
It's
we'll
that-
rework this into the
that-
phoenix rising from the ashes.
it's that old adage. Wherever we are, it's this too shall pass, right?
Yeah.
And something else is going to come in.
Hey,
come in. Front
things
of
are
it.
going great.
This too,
this too
shall,
shall
pass.
pass.
It will.
Yeah.
It always does.
So we've talked a little bit about nutrition. We just kind of skimmed over these, and we've talked
Yeah.
about emotional health.
Yep. A little bit.
What else is there to a healthy lifestyle?
Can
Go
I
ahead. Yeah,
wanted to
please.
respond, and I won't keep talking.
you
Daniel,
will.
you were talking about having no goals. I've had a very different approach, and I credit this to C.J. McClanahan.
Oh, CJ, he's getting shameless plugs. Is he a sponsor yet?
He's a friend of the podcast.
He's
He
a friend
is,
of
I
the
know.
pod, and
He
he's a friend of mine. Very
He's a good
influential
dude.
person.
He's a good
Yeah,
dude.
great dude.
He really is.
Not a sponsor, though.
Not a
I know.
sponsor.
He should be a sponsor. CJ, ante up.
I'm sure he'd say the same of us.
Well, we don't
Probably.
listen to his podcast.
That's true. Go on.
Oh gosh,
Does he have a podcast?
I assume he
I
does.
assume he
Everybody
does,
has
too.
one.
I completely.
Okay, so you were talking about.
Oh, my list. Okay, so
Yeah, goals.
it was always set goals. He's like,
Yeah.
I don't care what your goals are, just set some.
Yeah, right.
Just set them so when we look back and you see you did them, you'll be able to tell yourself,
Yeah.
well, of course I can do it because I did it. It's
Right.
the same thing, why it's
Yeah.
going to be okay.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just our brains do not work. They are not the we think they are.
Right.
And they are, I just read today that they are not, your memory is not being retrieved, it's being generated.
Yes.
It's like asking ChatGPT.
Yes.
It's like, well, here's what I'm going to make up based on what brief information I saw.
Right.
So I started setting goals, and then every year we would look back, and I would meet my goals, but I would always feel like I was not meeting my goals.
Why
And
did you
so-
feel that way?
Well, I'll tell you why. So I have every day. This is for a few years now.
We know about the reminders, and so do
I told
all
you
of our
about the reminder?
Yeah,
Yeah.
our listeners all know
Okay,
about it.
so I got those, and I told you, and I changed that over to
Yes.
what I have.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's been very interesting. I've been getting a little dopamine bump in the
Yeah.
morning
Okay.
just by
Yeah.
Okay,
reframing
that's good.
Yeah.
the what I want.
Yeah.
So, because
Well,
You know,
look-
you know what else that does for you, by the way? When you approach it from that perspective, when it gets icky, because it will get icky, when you can have that attitude, the ickiness doesn't seem to be there because you're like, I've got all this. Like, all of this overcomes that.
yeah.
And it makes you feel
And
really,
if you're
really
never
good.
not grateful for your life, just go talk to other people.
Amen. Yes. Yes. Well said.
I see the value of creating goals. And I utilized that for many years. And then as I said, I stopped. And then I accidentally started again. But but people create goals a different way. So there are, of course, a whole spectrum of personality types. There's this test that I took with a business advisor that was the Berkman assessment.
Right.
It's not as well known as like DISC or Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, but but it's kind of similar to Myers-Briggs in a lot of ways. So it's very in depth, and there is one of the measurables is whether you are low or high challenge. And I forget exactly how to interpret that spectrum, other than that if you're on one end of the spectrum, you are liable to avoid taking on things. Usually these are high achievers. They avoid taking on things that they don't know that they will win.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And then there are people that will almost consistently take on things that they know on the inside that they will fail.
Yeah.
And so those are, I think,
You just
high
described.
challenge people. And
I would
and-
say
You
half
just
of us.
described entrepreneurialism in a nutshell, right?
Well,
No.
not usually. Usually, an entrepreneur is going to be, and of course, there's all kinds,
Go
right?
ahead.
But
Go ahead.
an entrepreneur is going to be the type of person who's going to take on something very difficult, but they know they can achieve it.
Correct.
They believe they can.
Right.
Correct.
But they are going to skip all the other things. But where you usually see this attitude play out is in smaller stuff like a tennis match.
Oh,
like,
gotcha.
no, I'm not going to play tennis with
Yeah.
you because on the inside, I know I'm not good at tennis. I
Yeah,
only
yeah,
get
yeah.
A's, so I'm not going to take that test.
Right.
So,
But you never, ever get better until you do that.
sure, I
Right.
agree. But what I'm saying is that the way that people set goals is going to be based on
Yeah,
that part
yeah,
of their being. Is that
Yeah.
some people are going to set goals and they're going to
Safety
essentially
goals.
set goals that are safety goals.
yeah.
Even if they're
I get
big
it, I get
goals,
it.
they're like, I'm really good at this thing, so I'm
Right.
going to set a high goal on that thing. Like my daughter is really good at academics. She's going to set really high academic goals, but she may not be as strong in some other categories, and she will not even try.
Essentially
on
an
those other
avoidance
categories.
behavior.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And again, these are often high achievers, but on
Right.
the other end,
Right.
you're
They're overly
taking on
high.
more stuff.
Like on the disc, for example, a high C is a problem if you don't have like a psychopath level of risk tolerance,
Yeah.
which
yeah.
is absolute,
Right,
right?
right.
Because the person that is highly motivated but highly conscientious is very afraid of failing or not doing it right. It gets postponed. You need that weird.
I find that I ebb and flow based on the situation, with one exception. I always want to try to do something that I'm not good at if I have an interest in it, and I don't care if I fail. I don't. I really.
Well,
do.
you're right. Under those conditions, I try things.
What? But I
if-
try at a high level though. I don't like.
If the
I'm trying to-
criteria is I know I'm not good at this thing, I'm going to try it to practice.
I'm going to try to get better at it.
Then that's not the same kind of
I see what you're
challenge
saying.
as
Right.
like it. Obviously, when you get into uncovering this nature of humans, there's going to be all these different nuances. Like,
Yeah.
am I in front of people? Is it going to be embarrassing? Versus, am I trying a new game I've never played before?
Oh yeah, am I failing
So-
in private or public? Or
yeah.
Yeah. Am I failing in yoga class or am I failing?
Well, let's talk
in,
about that for a
you know-
second. Are either of you afraid to fail in public?
Yeah.
Are you?
Oh
You-
sure.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's not public in general. It's the public of my peers
Yeah.
would
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I'll give you an example for me. I'm going to, right now, if I were to go out, and I've got a golf tournament tomorrow morning, and I had one this past weekend.
We get it. You're a big
Stop.
golfer.
Yeah.
Stop.
You're a
But
big deal,
stop.
Michael.
I'm not. Stop. But I want to perform at a high level.
Yeah.
And I don't always perform at a high level. And
I've heard.
And it's embarrassing. And you come back from it and you're like highly motivated not to let that happen again.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I agree with
So,
you.
but you have to put yourself out there. You have to try.
right.
And part of trying is knowing that you may not
Yeah.
win or you may suck.
Well,
right?
with golf, it's easy for me to fail in front of people because of how bad I am.
I know.
Because of how bad a player I
get-
am.
It's
but
it's
also-
easy for me to fail because I don't care about golf.
But if you, but let's take your jiu-jitsu.
Sure.
Yeah. Take one
Well,
of your
and just
tourna-
talking is tough
Yeah,
sometimes.
it can be. Take one of your tournaments.
yeah.
If you don't,
Which
perform-
one? The ones I did well, or the
Take
ones
them
I
all,
ate
please.
shit?
The ones where you didn't perform as well as you thought. Like you walked off the mat
Yeah,
feeling somewhat
the-
embarrassed that you
the-
didn't do what you
The
should have done.
last one I
There you
did
go.
in Vegas at the
Yeah.
Master Worlds.
Right. So you
I
put
didn't
yourself-
do poorly, but I
Right.
made the most rookiest of mistakes because I was so like
But you
jacked up in the moment.
But you put yourself out there.
yeah, and I got to feel what contention
Yeah.
is like.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
do I
yeah.
deserve to be
Yeah,
here?
Yeah.
And the answer was, well, you could, but you know what you're going to have to do, and that's going to be your life is going to be built around this.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one of the other students, he just won his 5th world championship. He has won all of them except the one in Brazil because nobody goes to Brazil. And I've seen how he has to train, and I've seen how he has built his life around being
Yeah.
able to do this. He's also incredibly gifted physically. He works very hard.
Right.
Smart guy.
Yep.
All the
Good
He's
looking.
no, he is. He's
very
like
good
the
looking.
most handsome Chinese man I've ever met.
Oh, I didn't even see him as Chinese.
Well, no, but when
you
I
see him as
say,
American?
but you have
Well,
to
I just don't
understand
see
why
color.
I say that because that's not a modifier. That's an addition.
I find as I've tried to get healthier with wanting to compete, I've had to sit down and really evaluate why I like doing it. You know why I like doing it?
Because you like challenging yourself.
I like feeling the pressure.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to compete was because I wanted to see what I could do if I trained at the level I would have to if I were competing. And I got to see what that was, and I
You
liked
said
it.
this is boring.
Well, no, it's like this has to be my third kid
Yeah.
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 in terms of
I-
dedication to it. And also, hopefully I don't get hurt, and also I'm definitely going to have to start taking drugs.
Surgeries. I definitely,
Inevitably.
Yeah, I know. I really do enjoy the pressure, but I also will say out loud that pressure scares me, right? Because pressure, to perform under pressure and not perform under pressure, when you don't perform under pressure, it takes a little piece of you.
Oh, I
Man.
call that eating shit.
Well, that you and I are talking about the same
Yeah,
thing.
and you
then
have to
you've
get
got-
good at
yeah,
that.
man. Yes. And then
Because you
you've-
can learn. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
no,
interrupted.
you totally can learn from it, right?
There's a
And you
lot.
go
There's a lot
practice it.
in my favorite joke is always. I don't know what leads up to it, but it's some kids just digging through a big pile of manure in the back of the barn, and the farmer's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Hey, listen, man, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere." And I think about that every time I'm just like, "Man, I wish this wasn't happening. Where's the pony?"
Right.
Or
right.
as
Right.
Bob Dapper, good friend, once
Yeah.
said, he's like, "I'm in the lemonade business."
Yeah.
He goes, it is my job to do something with all these lemons we're making.
Yeah.
And I changed it to, I'm in the manure business.
So that's what. So going back to healthy lifestyle, I think. So you're touching on a little bit of what we're talking about, Daniel. I think pressure. I think you have to have some of that in your life. I think it's good. I think it's a counterbalance. If you don't have it, I feel like you're. I don't know. Maybe
I wonder
coasting.
about that because I know that stress is noticed in your heart rate and
Yes.
in other physiological ways that are unhealthy for you.
Yes.
But I don't know if there's like,
Is there a healthy amount of stress?
is there
Yeah,
is there a
yes.
level where you need it?
I think
There's
so.
literally a law about it.
I think there is. Now the monks would disagree with us immensely on this, but I do think
So
there's
there's
a healthy amount.
a negative to zero stress.
Yeah. So the Yerkes-Dodson law, this is from Psychology
Look at you.
102, describes the relationship between arousal or stress and performance. And you're familiar with it
Yeah.
as a bell curve. And it says, if I can get moderate arousal, I can get peak performance. Too much arousal, I'm now anxious and my performance suffers. Too little, I'm unmotivated. I don't do that effort.
Why am I here? Yeah.
So, and depending on whether you call it arousal or stress or anxiety, like
Yeah.
feels
Same thing.
well, but it feels very different
Yeah.
because arousal is like crank
Let's
it
go,
up.
yeah.
But
let's
you know how
fucking
we all
go.
deal with that is different, though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's
Well,
really said.
and one of my favorite therapists often talked about like, no, well, I'm stressed. No. Tell me again. Well, I'm feeling stressed. What are you feeling stressed about? I am in my mind. I am working myself up into physiological
yeah.
a physiological state.
Yeah. No, I get it.
And like you said, when you're under pressure, a moderate amount of that makes you perform well, but you still like that the zone. A
I
little
find-
too much, and then you got the yips.
I find that in business too, right? A little, just a little. I feel
Got to
like
be a
I'm
little hungry.
laser focused. I feel really sharp. A lot of it, I'm stressing out. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
It-
shit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hungry's bad. Ambitious.
ambitious.
Ambitious is
I
that
think
sweet
that- yeah, I
spot
think
of
that's
you
what
know
we're
this is
looking for.
business that I
Yeah.
do want.
Yeah. You sit down at your desk and you just feel like I'm in a zone
Yeah.
because you're feeling it. And then there are times you sit at your desk and you're like, oh, shit, what am I going to do? Right? And we've all been there.
Well, I think that so that's the later part of the bell curve where if
Yeah.
you see the red laser pointed at you,
Yeah.
you freeze and you do nothing.
Yeah,
So then
too
you're
much-
not
too
accomplishing.
much
Yeah, you're not
arousal.
accomplishing anything.
Yeah.
You're scared.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
But if you're aroused enough to be engaged, then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
we can do this. I have to do it,
Yeah.
but I also am ready to do it.
Here's the question for the two of you. Do you seek that out, whether you know it subconsciously or
Oh,
consciously?
every goddamn day.
I know you do. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know you've tapped into it.
Yeah, I
You
know.
tapped into it a long
it's
time ago.
it's my power.
I know.
It's my
I know.
inner spinal snake of fire. Or I don't know what.
That's what I mean about my circle of friends. You have figured that out better than most. You really have.
Yeah, there's something in a different life. I would have been a different person.
Yeah. Gladiator.
Well, something in that. Yeah, there's some sort of hunger for that. I think we all have it.
I do too.
But I
think-
could
but
I
think
could
you
see
tap
it
into
driving
on
my
a-
life.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't get into the stuff that I do younger.
Really?
Well, because I think it would have
Just carried you off in
how
that direction.
how I could have done what I was doing instead of that. I don't know.
So do you feel that you have a healthy balance between that today versus if what you just described?
yeah. No, I do recreational
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not getting hit anymore. It's
Right.
nothing.
Yeah. You.
I don't think about the ways that I seek that out, but
Yeah. How do you
I-
get aroused, Daniel?
magazines,
Good
just
steak.
whatever.
Hang on.
Steak,
Speaking
a
of
potato.
arousal,
No, but I am. So I guess one thing that I can point to is I usually get hyper focused on a thing. I pick a thing that I like and I get
It's
hyper
true, you
focused
do.
on it.
Yeah.
you find
do.
a thing if you have
And
to.
and I don't always wear it out and then move on, but I sometimes do. So, I got really interested in selvage denim. I went all in on that for years. And just,
Ruined my sheets. my legs. My
obsessively.
legs are still
Yeah.
tinted.
The car seats
You're
are
not-
discolored.
You're not kidding.
No, it's true.
And
All new
then
furniture.
I had to replace my fucking couch. I mean, it
I
was
bet.
crazy.
Did you
I bet.
really?
No.
From the pants?
Yeah, it stained the couch.
Yeah.
It stained the couch.
Wear and
Don't worry.
tear, but we're going to blame the salvage denim on it.
But anyway, and then I moved on because I was like, you know what, stretchy pants are a little bit more comfortable.
You get
So
the Joe Rogan sweatpant jeans.
but I started this blog
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Tell me
and-
about it.
And I did not stop.
Does it stress
And you
out?
haven't stopped.
Does it,
Sometimes.
I wondered.
Because sometimes I'm behind. It's always fun
Yeah.
when I'm right in the sweet spot of not
Yeah.
behind,
Yeah.
but I know I have a deadline.
So I'm curious. Were you behind this week?
No.
Okay. And I think I can tell, but I'll come back to
Okay.
that. So when you feel that, what does that do to you? I mean, physically or metaphysically?
So writing is a creative thing. It's not the same kind of stress of like winning a deal, right? We're all in sales in some way.
Yeah.
Winning a deal is like invigorating. You're going after this opportunity. You lose one, you lose another, you almost get another one, and then you win one, and that's
Yeah.
a thrill.
Right.
Whereas writing, among other creative acts, is sort of like engaging the brain in a different way that doesn't have the same kind of stress because it's not a contest or something like that.
Or the same kind of payoff.
Right. It's not
100%.
Unless-
like zero payoff.
Well, unless you've got like a big social media following, and you can
Right,
get that
right.
wave
and then you
of
can
dopamine of
the
approval
response,
and-
but when I am right at that right level of engagement, I feel like I'm funnier. I feel like I can't describe it
You're
any
in the
other way
zone,
than
man.
the juices are flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
ju-
it
juice
it
is
comes to
loose.
me, right? The idea, the form, the poetry of it just comes to me, and it just flows out of me.
Easy.
And then I come back and edit it, and the editing makes it better. It's not like a chore.
Yeah.
But then if I'm behind, it's like, well, shit, I have to. We
Be
got
creative.
Dinner,
Be
we
creative.
got dinner tonight, and I haven't even started. Right?
Hey, isn't dinner crazy sometimes? Like you're just kind of throwing premises
Yeah.
out to see if anything
Running late to
spikes
dinner,
you.
does that stress you out? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But tell me
yeah.
what.
Interestingly, I was curious to ask you this question today because today's issue was different than the last 6, 7,
It was.
8 issues.
Yeah.
There was a simplicity to it.
Mm-hmm.
There was an easiness. I didn't feel like you were
Little
digging.
peek of a curtain
Yeah.
at the psyche of Daniel.
Yeah, it's like you weren't digging into it as much as you were just flowing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And even Lori said something to me this morning as she read it. She's like, wow. And I said to her, what do you mean? And she said, that's different. And it,
Okay.
and it read different.
Well, yeah, pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you, to
Go ahead.
Michael's point, I'm like, okay, this could just be he sprinkles in editorial, or it could be he needed something, or it could be he's going in a different direction, and this is sort of a testing what happens if I sort of write more extemporaneously as opposed to the
typical.
media culture.
Yeah.
But it felt very different in knowing you.
Yes.
That
yes.
wasn't. It didn't just occur to
Right.
be different.
So
it was by design. Yes.
It was by design, and I'll
Yeah.
tell you exactly what was going on. So first of
Will
all,
you read it out loud just for our listeners?
Why don't
who
you read it for our
aren't
listeners?
I'll
lucky
actually
enough to
sound
be
like I'm reading.
Yeah,
subscribers?
go ahead.
But when nothing I do in the blog is without thought, right?
Yeah,
It's
of
all,
course.
there's some intention to it and some long-term strategy to it. Doing it at all has a long-term strategy. But when I started writing, it was something I didn't share with anybody. And it was because I'm like, this is thoughts that I want to get out there that could offend a person.
Yeah.
You need to express the thought. You don't need to have it.
Yeah. But I
Reviewed.
eventually just said, I really want to stop hiding these things that I write down that I know that I want
Well, and
to
I
share.
saw some of them, and
Yeah.
you should.
Well, but also when I started, I also wasn't that good at it, right? So, but what I enjoy the most is writing articles that are a single topic that might weave through different
That's what
ideas.
today was.
But it is a single topic. But then I said, to do this, I should start sending this out to my newsletter list that I've built over all these years. And I started to kind of grow that list as well. And so I said, I need to have a hook that's easy for people. So I created the rundown of the weekly updates on a handful of news items, And so that whole rundown, which is sort of like a variety show,
Yeah.
was just to make reading it easy so that I could market the thought pieces that I write.
Yeah.
And then between thought pieces, you have two kinds. You have one that is very researched and hard to write because it's a lot of verifying.
Here's a
things.
study.
Yeah, and then there's others that are like, this is just me thinking out loud, and those don't require me to seek out facts and verify
You're not
background
digging
data
into
or
it, which
anything
is
like
what
that.
Yeah.
And
right.
those are the most fun to write because
tell.
they're the easiest to write, and it's most about the style and less
Yeah.
about the
that was today's
verifying
flow.
anything.
That was
Yeah.
today's flow. You could feel it. You could sense it.
Okay, that's good.
And then Lori was concerned if maybe you were supporting him.
Well, that is
she
the
was
point.
Not. I'm teasing. She was not.
Okay, good.
Her comment was, "How cool." Her exact words were, "What I love is that he shares both sides." Mm-hmm. That's what she.
Nobody has a monopoly on bad ideas or good ones.
That's true.
And one of the things that bothers me the most, that I think this ties into healthy living, because I think that how we engage in controversy through politics and religion talk and all this stuff that we disagree about as a culture, is that there's, especially once somebody's in the public eye, there's an assumption that they're either all bad
Or all good.
or all good.
And there's no in
that's-
between.
Yeah, there's no such thing as that person.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
And the person that when somebody's in politics, they're either on our side or they're not.
right.
And so I think that I can, if I'm intellectually honest, I can find something good
yeah.
and something bad about any politician. And sometimes you might have someone whose policies you agree with the most and you think they're a total bastard. And sometimes it's the other way around, where
Right.
you think that they're a wonderful person, but you don't agree with any of their decisions.
Right.
But it's usually a mix.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's called
I'm-
being, it's
I'm
called
a
being
fan
human.
of Eric Adams because of like a 10-second clip I once saw, and I'm like, that dude should be in charge of New York.
It's called being human, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, truly, none of us are perfect, and none of us walk that
I'm
line.
I'm gonna take that a step further, Michael, and say that now I'm a young man of 49.
At least 49. You've got to be at least
and-
52 by now.
I will tell you that with maybe the exception of two people, none of them are here right now. Maybe with the exception of two people, everybody I have ever met and gotten to know is completely delusional and utterly committed to their rationalization of their view of the world. Now, that includes me. Of course, I forget that because I have this secret vision that sees things that are true or whatever.
Yeah.
I see
Whatever
what
I
you don't
sound
see.
like when I'm arguing.
Yeah, you're the
with
only
my
one that
wife.
knows
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah,
right.
I'm the special one.
None of us feel that way. None of us feel that way. Go on.
And it's something you kind of have to learn to ride.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because there was a period where I would get really upset when people would express like self-harming beliefs
Oh,
that there was evidence otherwise.
Yeah.
You know, like when
Yeah.
your spouse has a problem.
Yeah.
And you're like, I've got an idea, and that's the wrong thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the wrong thing.
That's how I learned. Have I talked about reenactments?
No, that's
Versus
the only thing you haven't
conversations?
repeated. Yeah.
No.
Conversation. So I used to think I was having conversations with Amy.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because
you
she
touched
would
this.
come and talk to me about
Right.
something, and I'm like, "Oh, we're having a conversation."
she's just talking
okay,
to you.
Cool. Here's my thought about it, and it's not always welcome. It is often.
Right.
Things are great. We're fine. I love you, baby. But one day I had this epiphany because all I was doing was snapping my ring to remind myself, just shut up. Just don't talk. I do this all day, every day, Daniel,
Yeah.
believe it or not. Don't
Yeah,
talk.
I'm glad you do.
Because I want to think out loud with people.
I like it when you think out loud.
Give it time. We don't spend a lot of time together, Michael.
This is why I
You'll
like it.
No, Michael, you'll see what I mean. But I was really actively focusing and do not say anything for any reason unless she asks you a question. By the way, if you ever want to really feel bad about yourself, don't say anything to somebody until they ask you a question. And you'll walk away like I never got to say a word. It's bizarre. But
Man.
the
Oh, you lost
So
your
you were
train of
talking
thought.
about you're snapping the
ring.
oh,
Yeah.
except the ring,
Amy's
don't
having a
talk.
conversation
She's
with
doing,
you.
and I realize what she's doing is she's reenacting her day to me.
Oh, yeah.
She's showing me.
Yeah.
And this is what was different. Wasn't like, oh, this is a performance. It's like, no, she's trying to show me what was happening in a way that it feels like I was there with her.
Yeah.
That's all she wants.
Yeah.
She doesn't need me to approve. She barely needs me to like track it.
Just
It's that
sharing
she
her day
wants
with
to
you.
show me what her day was like.
Yeah.
Which is
So that
Yeah.
it felt like we shared it because she loves me. Like
which is healthy, right?
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
But when I learned about the difference between conversations and reenactments,
Different.
it's made a massive difference in my life.
Yeah.
And I feel bad that I have to frame it as that to not participate. My job is to applaud.
yeah, yeah. Or demonstrate that you're listening.
Yeah, that's my participation is to witness the reenactment.
So that reminds me of two things that I want to talk about before we finish. So one is what, to a healthy lifestyle, what do relationships mean? You know, how important are they, and how do you navigate? How do you incorporate that into your living healthy? And then the other is leisure. So relationships and leisure.
I want to tackle the relationship piece because we just had this conversation last night. It's fascinating as we all get older and you look at your circle of friends and you start to see them in a different light, healthy or unhealthy. You see the healthy relationships. You see the unhealthy relationships.
You're talking about just the relationship
just the
aspect.
just the
Not
Healthy
like
relationship.
their
relationship.
fitness or
Yeah,
the way that they're with
right.
Yeah,
The
this
way-
guy's buff.
Right.
This guy's a little
Yeah,
flappy.
not at all. That's not what I'm, but we're
Juicy
talking,
quads is what I heard from you.
God, we're talking about the wellness of the relationship within the friendship,
Yeah.
right? And what Lori and I have been discovering for the last, I would say, since the pandemic, those relationships that are healthy, we gravitate towards. Those that are unhealthy, we have purposefully pulled away from.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even when we get roped into, because you can never really cut that off. We have Lori has one girlfriend that when she ends a relationship, she says to your face, we're no longer friends. It's not that you're bad or I'm bad. It's
Yeah.
that, I mean,
We're not sharing. Yeah.
she calls it out and cuts it off. And I'm
Yeah.
like, holy shit, who does that? She does that. And
It's
I
very
think
rare.
pretty-
Most people ghost people.
Correct.
Like they literally
Yes.
end a
And
relationship in
these
the
are-
most inhumane
These
way.
are women that have had friendships for 15 or 20 years, and where one says, this is no longer healthy for me, or I no longer get what I need from this friendship.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I watched that happen 15, 16 years ago, and I started to realize, man, as a guy, it's just easy, right? We don't reach out, or maybe we disengage, or we just don't show up, or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
People come and go.
But what's fascinating is that sometimes if you don't cut those relationships off, you get dragged back into them. And that happened recently. And Lori looked at me, and I looked at her, and I think at the same time we both said, what are we doing? Like, why are we involved with this nonsense? It's not good for us. It's not healthy. We get dragged into this ickiness.
And the hardest part is I don't tell the person that.
Right.
Like, hey,
That's what
your
I'm talking-
chaos.
Yes.
And
Your
your
drama,
recovery
your-
is always on the precipice
Yeah.
of.
So
Yes.
that kind of scenario happened where the conversation did happen. It was
Was this a you and Carrie thing, or was this a you thing with a friend?
it was a Carrie.
I let her talk.
It was a Carrie with her friend.
Yeah.
Where she expressed concern
Yeah.
about the direction that the friendship was taking because of weight that was being put on
Yeah.
from one friend to another's
Yeah.
shoulders.
Yeah.
And that friend took it as this has to be over entirely.
Oh, wow.
And so that was sad and it was
Yeah.
unfortunate. And I'm sure that,
It's a reaction to
there's-
rejection.
yeah. And there's a perspective on both sides.
Yeah, of course.
And that's fine. But it's very painful because by doing your best to do the right thing, you're saying, I think I can't receive this burden
Right.
nonstop.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're
Or I'm not willing. I'm not
Yeah.
willing to carry it.
right.
Yeah. But after many years of doing my best to
Yeah,
do
I'm
so.
no longer
Yeah.
willing to carry it, and that is
Yeah.
a huge judgment on you, whether I feel it or not.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
person's going to take it.
So as we were driving back from our dinner last night, we were talking just as the three of us are now, and I looked at Lori and I said, I have over time learned to accept people where they are. Doesn't mean that what was still is. It just means I accept you where you are, and I have no further expectations than where you are right now, right? Because that's who you are. These stripes aren't changing
Right.
at 49, 54, 58, 23.
I'm 83.
I put you at 23. That's who we are. So if you can find the grace within yourself, the healthy piece of you to just say, okay, that's all that is. That's hard to do, man.
What we
Really
say
hard.
no to, this sounds, I don't mean it to sound profound.
No,
what
you're
we
right.
say no to matters more
Yeah.
than what we say yes. And I was thinking about,
Isn't that the truth?
did we talk about the 7 deadly sins and pride and stuff last time?
Not
Think
last time. I,
No.
I feel
So
like it's come up.
But it's come up, yeah.
it has.
Well, I was thinking about how the attempt to frame behaviors that leave you isolated as sins, something like gluttony.
Yeah.
And what occurred to me was that, well, when you're obsessed with something, and again, we're using sin loosely, but gluttony, for example,
sure.
where you overeat and
Is that what that means?
Overindulge
it's
in many ways.
in anything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In 7, it was food.
Correct.
That's
In
kind
the
of
movie, I agree.
I based my understanding on the movie.
By the way, that's how I learned there were
There's
7 deadly
Yeah,
sins.
there
I
you
always
go.
thought it was 6.
Yeah.
I didn't know there were 7, but go on.
But the idea is that because in the pursuit of that sin, you you exclude so much from life.
Yeah.
Because whether you're gluttony or your lust, for example, whatever it may be, like that's what you're occupied with. I was thinking about addiction and how oddly simple life can be when you're living in addiction. Because if I asked you, hey, Daniel, what are you going to do today? Like, man, I got this thing and I got this thing and I got this thing. And I got to go do this thing. And if I have time, I'm going to do that. But if you're fully in addiction, it's like, well, I'm going to get high.
Yeah. Well, I've known.
Yeah.
I've
I
known
might
people-
have to go to work to
Yeah.
get money
Right.
to go
Yeah.
get the thing to get high, but I'm getting high and that's what I'm doing today.
Yep.
I've known people that were very high functioning in every way that we would identify a person that's
Absolutely.
a functioning member of society. Kind, friendly people, exciting to be around, that they actually build their whole life around, I can't leave the house at this time because I'm going to be drunk.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Like
know
that-
exactly
I-
what you're talking about.
You know, I don't. What do you mean? My kid's going to be somewhere at night and I have to pick him up?
Nope.
Like, I
Not
can't
after
do it.
6:30. We're
and,
not.
And I'm talking about, there's lots of abuse of alcohol, and there's like these different ranges to where you could identify it as
Like a daily functioning
you.
alcoholic.
You get to
right?
decide when somebody's an alcoholic,
Right.
but I'm talking about people that are objectively an alcoholic and function in every way in their job.
With
and-
partitions and
we
discipline.
know,
and
we know someone like that.
Yeah.
We had to end the friendship because of it.
Yeah.
And it was not good.
Yeah.
Because
Now-
once you see it in the wild, you're like, I don't want anything to do with this. And that's not
No,
just
no, you're spot on.
alcoholism. That is when I talk about these sins and
I
how they
agree.
manifest.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not using it from a judgmental standpoint
Yeah.
as a category.
Right.
How they manifest is it separates us. Like
Yeah.
you cannot be in community because you're
I'm going to give you an
You're
example.
obsessed.
You are spot on. The individual I'm talking about, back when I was racing my bicycle, I did two things. I became
Did you win?
A little bit. Not a lot, but a little.
I
Sometimes.
knew you were a
I
winner.
like the pressure.
He was always
I like the
50-50
pressure.
on winning.
I like the pressure. 60-40.
He was either learning or winning.
right.
I learned a lot.
I stopped. I became a vegetarian for like 3 years when I was cycling, and I stopped drinking for 3 years. I had no alcohol at all. And I didn't miss it. I didn't think about it. I was just doing it because it was helping me get to where I wanted to go. Right?
You,
You
had
had a
something
reason,
to focus.
yeah.
Yes, I had a reason.
I couldn't
was
drink
hyper-
when I trained because I couldn't recover.
Right.
Yeah.
I was hyper focused, and that's exactly why I did it. This particular friend, you would have thought I threw a punch at him. Like, what do you mean you're not drinking? We drink everywhere we go.
Hey, we're getting together for drinks. Well, hey, can we do something
Yeah.
else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No.
I'm like, dude, we can go to the bar. I'm just not going to drink. Well, you're not. Whoa.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And that friendship.
It's because that type of person is uncomfortable, and it's
100%.
unfortunate.
100%. It goes back to what you were saying, too. Yeah.
I-
and then
I was-
ended. Go ahead.
I was going to say that what you mentioned earlier about accepting people where they are, that's something that's always been, I guess more natural to me as I get older. Not always,
would
not my
agree
whole
with that.
life, but I know people that have such, their values are so far removed from mine that I don't even think about it.
Are they single men in their 30s? That is a
like,
wild crowd.
but I know what you're saying. because I
But
have
like
friends
like,
that.
I have maybe a small handful of friends that my daughters will say something or Carrie will say something like, why this, why that? And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I don't think about it because I don't see that as the whole person.
Yeah, right.
And
I would agree with that.
and I understand that there's also when something is opposed to the way that you live your life or how you value, where your values are placed.
Right.
I know how you can be uncomfortable with that thing, but it's very easy for me to just like not care that somebody's not perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had this one friend who actually ended up in prison for his problems.
Oh, boy.
And before he was in prison, I was just like, okay, fine, he's a jackass, but
A
we
delinquent.
engage in some interesting conversations that we
Yeah.
enjoy, and I keep him at arm's length or whatever.
Yeah, I'm no longer interested in artificial friendships. Do you know what I mean by
Yeah,
that?
agree. Yeah,
I
100%.
just-
Oh,
If
I
you're not-
want less people in my life already.
if we go out, let's just say we go grab a beer, or go grab dinner.
Or water.
If you're not asking or water, if you're not asking me about my business, Lori, family, if you're not asking stuff within my life and it's just bullshit, I want no part of it. I'm at that stage of my life, and I think I've gotten there with age because when I was 30, I didn't dissect that.
It's because there's no room.
That's right. That
I
is
can
exactly
be
right.
I can be a good dad, a decent husband. I can be fit, and I can work.
I did 47 push-ups today,
And that's
just so you know.
well, and that's about like that's a lot.
I was
It
going to
is,
do 50,
but
but
it
I
is a
decided
lot.
not to.
It is a
You
lot.
could, Daniel. I believe
I
it.
don't know. if
You look
could.
like someone.
I
who
don't
could.
think you could, but we'll see.
I could probably do 3 right now.
If this thing was being filmed, I'd have you get your ass out there, and I'd like to see 50 of them.
Maybe
right now.
maybe next time.
Yeah, we'll see.
Maybe next time.
But I agree with you. And you just nailed it. Time. I don't want to waste any more time.
Well, it's
with
because we
that.
don't have a lot
That's
left.
exactly
We
right.
we
right.
are well into the back nine
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
sense.
Yeah.
And I was
You're
just
spot on.
I don't know why this came up, but thinking about time, the best thing that's ever happened to me was in my late teens realizing that if I have to work early, I'm going to stay out of so much trouble
Yeah. Yeah.
because I need to sleep.
Yes.
yeah.
So, like, my life revolves around when
You're
I
not
have
out
to
at
be out
3
at the
a.m..
bus stop
Yep.
to get to work on at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m.
Yeah.
or whatever it was. But my whole life being built around that, I avoided so many problems that have ruined
Yes. Yes.
younger friends' lives.
We've shared that with all of our nieces and nephews that have graduated college or are in college, and the simple message is nothing good happens after midnight ever. It just
I
doesn't.
say 8 p.m. But
Okay, well, it's been reduced, but as a young 20-something-year-old
for
adult,
sure, yeah.
nothing good
And that's
happens
grandma
after midnight.
wisdom.
right?
That's
I mean,
real
it's just
stuff.
common sense.
Okay, so we've
let's
talked about
go ahead.
nutrition. You eat good food, have healthy relationships. I guess something was in the middle. We were talking about.
We talked a lot about arousal.
you know,
I was hoping to bring up sex
developing-
and how often you guys are getting it. I want to.
Pretty often. Yeah, pretty good. At least a couple times a day.
I'm Italian. That's all I'm saying. Go on.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So,
Sorry for
but
Lori.
With
the
two
yes.
or more people.
Yeah. There you go.
the
stipulations.
last thing
Yes.
is leisure. How
Oh,
important
yeah.
is leisure? Meaning relaxation, taking time
big.
off, but not even scheduled time off like a vacation. I mean,
I'm gonna.
Yeah, I know exactly. I
Go ahead.
my leisure is in service of my work because I know that I have to give my brain space.
Yeah.
I have to give it boredom. I have to give it monotony. Not that not working is those things, but like giving it room. And so to your point about you mentioned the person drinking who like we can't do anything after this
We couldn't
time.
be friends anymore.
I feel like that in general because by about 6:30, like I don't have any good stuff left in me because I've given
All day.
5 a.m. to noon is my best cognitive work.
Yeah.
And then it's physical work and then it's relational work.
Yeah.
And by like 6:30, 7 o'clock, I'm out of work.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure that I take time to like I'll go for a walk with no headphones, nothing like that. For me, that's leisure.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not entertainment.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's perfect
It's
qualification.
dead space.
one of the
And creative people taught me that.
Yeah,
like you
what-
have to get bored to have good ideas.
well, I used to have my best ideas on Sundays at the bookstore.
Yeah.
Just picking at books.
Yeah.
I'd literally like read a couple of
You-
pages
you'd
and I'm
see
like,
a
forget
word
this
and be
book. I
like,
just
"That's
came
the
up with
thing."
something.
Yeah.
But
Your
it
mind's
was
quiet.
it was being relaxed. It was a setting that was the bookstores are calming environments. They're quiet.
I used to spend my lunch break when I was 17, 18 working at a Billy Heartbeats. It was like a Johnny Rockets
Oh, yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
50s
The
diner.
burger joint.
But I would work doubles, and so I'd work in the morning and then I'd have a 4-hour break, and then I'd work evening.
Oh man.
It was just them not paying me
Yeah.
for the middle of
Yeah.
the day. Like,
Yeah.
I can't go home. But I would just hang out at the bookstores because it was in a mall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
I
to
do
your
mi-
point,
I
like
do
that's
miss
some
that.
of my best years.
I do miss
I
those
forgot about
bookstores.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I miss a good bookstore. I
I
really
met
do.
cool people.
Yeah.
I learned how to talk to pretty girls.
You know where I go. So if I just drive down to the lake, by the time I get halfway, Like you start going.
It's
through
a
the morning,
meditation on the way, isn't
and
it?
I'm already decompressed and stress is gone. And
A lake is such a great place to relax, and I have
and meditate.
I live on a lake as well. It's a much
I
smaller lake.
like if you could see the
Okay.
sarcasm on his face as he's saying this pond.
Hey, Michael, yes, and
Yeah, we do need to teach this guy some yes and.
I
But,
think we
Oh,
need to get
boy.
an improv coach in here.
yeah, I agree.
I think it would be a great interview.
But in all
gosh.
seriousness, our neighborhood
Yeah.
pond
Yeah.
is classified as a lake, and it is still picturesque.
It is. It's beautiful.
You can't put any
Well, because you're being
any
responsible
boats
about
on it or
yeah.
anything like that. But
It's not a tragedy of
yeah.
the commons.
but
Just to
it's
sit there
but
and
it's just
see
like
it.
there's something about that serene appearance that just relaxes your mind.
Men need to look at water and fire.
Yeah, and
Fire works for me too.
I love both. We
Good
have
bonfire.
our fire pit right there as well, and just sitting outside, shoes off, morning time coffee like on the
that's my
weekends or
favorite.
something.
Uptown problems.
That
It's
is-
just
that's one of
unbelievable.
How
my
lucky
favorites.
are we? By the way, how lucky are we?
Pretty damn lucky.
I'd say pretty
that
lucky.
Seriously.
the solution to my stresses are to go to a quiet place
that I own.
and look at nature
Yeah.
that belongs to you that can't be infringed
It's
upon
pretty lucky.
without due process. at the
There's
very
an
least.
easement. There's an easement.
Pretty lucky. I would say
As
water,
opposed to, I hope I don't get bombed today.
water for sure, and I would also say going for a bike ride. That's also really
Yeah.
man. That's some quiet space for
But
me.
I would
like
I would
that.
also I think that this could be a whole podcast to talk about this topic. But I think that the idea of leisure I think is an overlooked topic
in this country.
healthy
It is.
healthy lifestyle.
I would
thing.
agree.
I
Because we
forgot.
work 40 hours
Or
at
more.
a minimum.
No, we don't. We're at work for
yeah,
40
of
hours.
Of course.
It's
But
50 plus to be working.
yeah, and
Yeah, because we never really stop.
yeah.
do we?
So you're
Well, we don't,
You're
'cause we're
at work.
assholes.
You're not necessarily. Well, I'm not talking about being productive, but you're at work for 40 hours or more, and then you're commuting on top of that. Typically,
Yeah, that's where we're in the
and-
60. Like all of a sudden, that's all your
and
time.
then you're coming home. You're getting dinner ready. You're getting the kids ready, for bed. Kids ready
Yeah.
for school the next day. There's so much work that is involved, and I hear about these cultures in, like in European communities where they just work far less and relax far more. And I
Yeah.
think that, we can talk about.
And they don't have green egg smokers, though.
That's true.
It's a trade-off, bro.
That's true.
I had a
That
friend
makes
who
a
just got
difference.
back from Greece. He's like, I fed 15 people for like $100. And I said, yeah, did they have Wi-Fi? He goes, nowhere.
no.
And they
It was
also
straight up.
wouldn't take American currency, which is another
Very strange.
conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole podcast
Well,
right
it's
there.
because the bank then taxes them to
Oh,
convert it
yeah.
to euro.
But I thought they took smaller bills over there.
No, they can't even put the
Oh, got
bills
it.
in the bank.
Got it.
It's
Got
a
it.
state policy to make them not
Yep.
take American money.
Yeah. But I think that there
I think
needs
you're
to
right.
be more appreciation for leisure. And I personally believe that a 4-day work week
I'm with you. I agree
is
with
the way
this.
to go. I did not work today,
I agree with
unless you
you.
count this podcast.
I'm going to up you and say a 3-day work week.
No, I've always.
I'll
no,
take
I'll
it.
do your abs in 4 minutes.
If you can make a living in 5 minutes, you should. But what I'm saying is, it is
4 on, 3 off.
impractical
Hang on,
for
it's-
people to live their life
It's all fake.
when you all have
is.
to work.
It is.
When everybody has to work.
It's
5
all
days a
crowd
week.
management that we don't need anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our biggest problem.
So our office. I know we're going to button this up real soon.
Yeah.
Back, I'm going to say it was 10 years ago. We decided 8 to 5 was no longer realistic. We said 9 to 4. So the team comes in
8
at
to
9.
5. Fuck you.
Right. So
You
the team,
better be paying me for
so,
lunch.
No, well, they get paid like they're on an 8 to 5. They get paid like they're working
On 8 to
40
5.
hours.
Okay, I was going to
But
say,
they only
because
work
if you're
35
making me
hours.
take an
No,
hour
no,
off
no,
in
no,
the
no,
middle
no.
of the day.
Everyone and they get paid for lunch. Everyone gets paid, but we give them 5 hours back in the week. And that 5 hours, I didn't know how important it was until we
Dude,
hired somebody.
you give them Fridays back, and they will kill people for you.
Yeah, I know. I know. And we do that a little bit during the summertime.
I am a big fan of. I would love to work really hard for 3 days.
I would. I would welcome
3
4.
12s. I would happily do 3 12s.
And for the types of jobs where that's an option and like you can
Yeah.
organize the work that
And
way,
that is
go
happening.
for it.
Well, that's a good point. And also, most of our jobs aren't necessary,
Yeah.
which is
I agree.
another problem.
That's
and
a
what do
whole
you
nother
do about
story.
dignity and purpose when there isn't any work needed?
Well,
I
that's
think
fast coming,
I
by the
think
way.
the answer, and
Next
I
year.
do think that this is a whole podcast. I think the answer is that we stop tying our value to salary work,
Yeah. That's a cultural
or
shift.
at least less so.
That is a monster cultural shift.
But it exists. It existed
does.
in the past.
well,
It
I would
existed in the
argue-
past, like hunter-gatherer stage or
I
whatever.
would
like,
argue that exists in certain ecosystems
you,
in this
Aaron.
country.
yeah,
Fuck
I'm
you,
like,
Aaron.
no, you're talking about people who didn't survive because they're
No, but-
losers.
okay, but they relax all the time.
But
bro.
what we're
I've
talking-
seen
You
those.
can- you
I've
can-
seen those grapes.
Hey, it's one good generation.
What we're
that
talking
bunch
about-
of grapes that they're just tipping into their
What we're talking
as
about
they're
does
laid
exist.
back in their orgies.
And who was enslaved that is holding the grapes for that to happen? That's always the problem.
those
is
people
who's-
had to work.
And they're like, no, it's robots this time. It's not. It's different.
those ecosystems do exist in certain geographic areas, albeit micro, but they do exist.
Did I mention?
Yeah, and that's
Port-
one
Portland?
of them. That's
Have
one
I
of them.
mentioned them?
That's one of them.
So one of the things that made me not fit in well in Portland was
Your
the
work
working
ethic.
all the time. Did you work
No,
twice a week?
it was a work ethic.
Yeah,
I
that's what we
started.
both got
I
there.
couldn't wait to work, to get out of the house, to get money and do whatever I wanted.
Right.
Portland always growing up, 80s, 90s, the ethos was you work enough to do what you want. And so people worked at coffee shops and lived in co-ops and then skied 5 months out of the year.
Yeah.
That's a very unusual attitude that your work is supposed to support your life. Most people build their lives around their work. And I think we suffer for it because most of our work is not that important.
That's right. Perfect time to end. Everybody,
Speaking
don't
of not
work.
important,
Don't work.
This
Be
podcast
leisure.
is not important. Please enjoy the rest of your week.
Happy 4th of July.